Peace, brethren. Hello, friends. How you doing? This is Elder Jeffrey from the St. Louis branch of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. Welcome to Friday Night Bible Study. Thank you guys for joining us. And I'm not by myself. I've brought some friends, of course, for us to continue our series of the Kings of Israel. So this week with us, we have Shelby Brown. How you doing, Shelby?
Peace. I'm doing great.
And from the West Coast, we have Dr. Jeffrey Blair. Hey, Dr. Blair.
Peace.
How
How
you
you doing?
doing?
Good. I'm doing good.
All
Doing all right.
right, all right. So we are very happy to be here for all of us to open up the Word of the God of Israel, set some time aside so that we can study and learn and hopefully be enriched by understanding our history, understanding our culture. They say if you have to learn what happened before, otherwise you're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. We don't want to do that. And we also want to learn to understand, what our God is really about. So it's important for us to take this time aside. And I encourage all of those that are here with us today to, definitely spread the word out now to your friends and family that we're on so that they can also jump on. Feel free to ask questions and comments in the chat. Let's engage one another. You hear something you like, put in some sevens or thumbs up. Let us know that, what we're saying is really connecting with you. So thank you guys again for joining with us. Let's see. Welcome, Florence. Welcome, Brenda. Hey, Albert. I see Willie. I see James. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you guys for joining us for this Friday night. All right, so Shelby, Dr. Blair, we usually don't, comment about current events that's happening while we're filming, because people will look at this, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. Once we capture this, it's here forever. So, it may not be relevant, but, I just have to say, and just shout out, because we are filming this during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And we just got back from headquarters in participating in Passover in person at our altar, which is significant, and I'm going to call it out now just because it's been so long since we've done that in person because of the pandemic and the border being shut down and things. So what do you guys think? How was this in-person Passover for you guys?
I think for me, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, for me, I think it's been really great, especially being out west a bit, sort of not having a lot of people around me to have the holy days with, to go back to sort of our sort of like our roots and to sort of see everybody and to celebrate everybody. It just has a good feeling of like community and family, but also to like physically be there, sort of where the altar is, and to actually, feel the aroma of everything and the feeling of everything, the heat of all the people around you, kind of makes you feel like you're sort of invested and involved in the larger nation, I think, as a whole. And then just again, see the new faces too. You see that every year where you sort of adding people to the nation and seeing the family grow is also something good to see as well. So.
Absolutely. You feel that connection. It's one thing to do it virtually, and but then be able to connect with each other and see the 3D person in front of you, right? Instead of
exactly.
And to embrace, and it really is a beautiful thing. Yeah. What about you, Shelby? This is your first in-person Passover, right? So
My first one, and it was just surreal. All the people, just all the, like you said, the aroma, the room filled, the worship, like it was surreal. It felt great though to be a part, and like you said, embrace everybody, see as many. You couldn't get to everybody, but I tried. But it was like it was good to see everybody, in person, and just hear. I mean, when you say praise the God of Israel, like it has a whole different meaning now. We have
yeah,
Yeah.
a whole different meaning. I never understood the real meaning, but I do now because
yeah,
that's what
Yeah.
happened.
That's actually a really good point. And just to touch on that is the idea. I think you say this all the time in terms of, you can't be an Israelite by yourself on an island. You kind of need that larger community. And what you were saying too, Shelby, is like you have a different understanding of what it means to praise the God of Israel because we were all there together doing it. And you think about, the idea that if you try to celebrate or praise the God of Israel on your own, how difficult that would be to really
Right.
replicate that, right?
Mhm.
So I think again having that larger community is for a reason and a purpose, because it's like a true ability to praise the God of Israel. And you
Yeah.
can see the benefit of having more people in this world praising the God of Israel, how the feeling is different, the energy is different. So yeah, for sure.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And
100%.
seeing the leadership move too. Also, I mean, just watching what took place with leadership.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't give it away all, right? But
Yeah.
it was just great to see that transpire, how leadership moved. I mean, from the day before to the day of to even at the end, and it just felt good because I still say I'm glad to be around great leadership. Like this is
Mhm.
true. This is truly a thing from the God of Israel, right?
Yeah.
It felt good. I just enjoyed it.
100%. 100%. And
Still
that's
cool.
oh no, for sure. Yeah, and that's one thing, you're trying to
Yeah.
soak it up, and so that you can take it with you, right? Because
Right.
it feels so precious. And like you mentioned, it's one of those things that whenever we study the scriptures, we always try to put ourselves in it. So it's not like some distant story or some type of mythology, or something that happened so many years ago we can't understand it fully, but these are just people, right? These are people, ordinary people like you and I, children and lives and uncles and fathers, and trying, and engaging with this God and the things that happen, sometimes successful, sometimes they're not, and they're going through these various things. So when we read something, we kind of can glaze over really quickly, but when you put yourself in it, going and being a part of some of those services, you really feel, you feel
Mhm.
the words off of the
Oh
page.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, when you talk about worshiping the God of Israel, you're like, oh wow, I thought I understood what it meant until I experienced it. Like, oh, I didn't understand it at all.
Yeah.
That was just a glimpse,
Oh,
right? Now I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wow, I felt a piece of that,
mhm.
and so it's just a beautiful thing, and it's hard
Yeah.
to put into words to describe. For those who were able to participate, absolutely, I see it here. I see sevens in the chat, so I'm glad that you guys were able to get an experience, and that's what it's all about.
Mhm.
That's why we're here. We're not here to talk about I'm right and you're wrong or any of those various things. We're just trying to be a light to the truth and give you a glimpse of, like, if you guys just give it a chance and keep putting one foot in front of the other and being humble, you'll see that we're really talking about our true enrichment as a people to the place
Yeah.
that we're supposed to
Yeah.
be. That's all
Yeah.
it is. All we're trying to do. We're trying to wake up our family, and we're hopeful that we continue to make these strides and continue to be that light to those that are on this path, so that they can find the truth as well. So,
Yeah.
so thank you guys for hanging in there and really working through, because the journey, which I mean, no, it's not easy, but definitely worth it. Definitely
Yeah.
worth it.
Definitely worth it.
Sure, for sure. So, as you mentioned about a part of that too is seeing the leadership and the structure and things that are being put in place. Like, it was a beautiful experience. It didn't happen by chance, right? It was someone had to structure it, following instructions to allow it to make that happen. And to me, I think that's a great segue about our series about the kings of Israel. And
Mhm.
depending on what king we had in time, it depends on how great that structure was in Israel. When you
Mm.
had a good king that followed the God of Israel, and as was outlined, right, as the king, we read this before in the first release of our series in Kings of Israel Volume 1, where it spoke about the instructions in the law. When you have a king, the king is supposed to get the law and write out the laws, and he's supposed to meditate on that on a daily basis, so he does not forget. You're not just king; you're king of Israel, and you
Mhm.
lead the people along these guidelines in order to make sure that they stay on this path. Because the truth is, you are sort of like a sit-in for the God of Israel. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's supposed to be the way it's supposed to go. And we see some kings did, but unfortunately, a lot of kings did not.
Yeah.
And so we kind of go through that to kind of understand our history.
Mhm.
So I've been getting a lot of positive feedback about this series. Even up in Passover, I had a couple people come and say, "Hey, man, I'm really loving the King series," and I was like, "Wow, okay, that's really good. I'm glad people are feeling it." So, what about you, Shelby? Have you got feedback from people about this series?
Oh yeah, I did at the Passover. I had several elder came up and talked to me and said it was nice,
Mhm.
and he enjoyed it. We had some of the brethren come up and talk to me and say it was nice. And I think this series or this king that we're about to talk about, this is like the perfect time because of what he did.
Mm,
I think this is the perfect time to talk about him. It kind of fall right in line with, probably how all of us left feeling that night, and
yeah,
and even into this feast of unleavened bread this week.
yeah,
I think it's perfect. I think this is gonna be a perfect
yes,
series today. I'm
nice.
excited to just get into it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, Dr. Blair, what about yourself? If someone actually like, we got so much to study in the scriptures, why is it important
Mhm.
to study the kings of Israel? Um,
Yeah,
what would you
I
say?
think yeah, I think kind of similar to what you were saying in terms of the sort of you can sort of tell the tone of how the nation is going to go based upon the leader that is there in the moment, and I think that leader sets that tone to sort of determine again, is this going to be a good period for Israel or a bad period for Israel? And how I think looking back at like the first King Saul and then like David, I think when I look at those kings, I think about how much like just to be in the seat of king is such a heavy burden. And kind of like what you were saying, sort of it's like put in the law to say the king should be doing such and such with the law to really understand it so that you're in tune with the God of Israel. And that's so important. And we see again the kings that were able to successfully do that and the ones that were not. And again, that really sets a tone for all of what's going to occur in terms of the entire nation. So I think for me, I enjoy it because again, you can kind of see how that sort of how do I say that how that tone does shape the future of the nation. But then when it comes to the good kings, I feel like there's always an inspiring story with these good kings that I can sort of feel like I can take in my personal life too as well to kind of uh, um, apply as well. So
Right,
Yes, for
right.
sure.
yeah,
For sure.
And
You
when you
learn from both. You learn from those that failed, also from those that were
yeah, exactly.
successful.
you see
Absolutely.
that bad leadership, though, if it's bad leadership, you just imagine at that time them having bad leadership. They couldn't have the Passover the way we just had.
Right.
Hmm.
No chill, no real praises. Just they couldn't have it. But
Yeah.
you know,
Right. For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. All right, well let's get into it. So if, again, it'd be very helpful if you guys have not already, the guys who are listening or maybe hearing this recording, is that you can go ahead and listen to volume 1 and volume 2, and then pick this one up on volume 3. You don't have to; you can always go back again. But some of this is a building on some of those things we spoke about before. But we're trying to fill in the gaps where we can. So let's get started. Okay, producer, can we just start with the slideshow first slide, and then we'll kind of go from there. Kings of Israel, Volume 3. There we go. All right. St. Louis branch. Again, everybody, please let's hear from you, your comments, your questions, your sevens, your five. I already see that already out there. Thank Florence. Hey Noel. Hey Lakeisha, Willie. All right, Dion. Peace, everybody. All right, let's go to the first slide after this, which is a nation split. So the time period that we're going to be speaking about is after the nation splits. And a lot of people did not know that our nation is split. Our nation, the 12 tribes, the children of Israel, at one point, of course, were one nation under King Saul, under King David, under King Solomon. But at some point, there was a split where we had the northern kingdoms called the Kingdom of Israel, and then the southern kingdom called the Kingdom of Judah. And it's some of the so at times we'll have a king of one and a king of the other. You have two stories happening simultaneously.
right.
And as we go through for today, we're going to be talking about the kingdom of Judah, two of our dignitaries for the kingdom of Judah. If we go to the next slide. And so this sort of gives the genealogy of both. On the left-hand side is the kingdom of Israel. The right-hand side, you'll see the kingdom of Judah. And we're going to be starting. I'm going to bring people's attention. Can you guys see? I'm not sure how clear this Christmas getting to you because there's a lot of details in there. But do you see where Ahab is? Yeah, you see Ahab and Jezebel right there in the middle. You see where there's a connection between the two lines?
Mm-hmm.
Between Ahab, Jezebel, then go to Atalia. You see that? All
Yeah,
right.
they're in the red, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's when we see that. Okay. So there's a connection there. There's a point where the world families of both end up intersecting right there. That's kind of, and it's relevant for today. That's why I want to make sure you guys kind of see that connection there. There's a connection between the royal families there with Atalia. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the first one. That's where we're going to be going. Next slide. Queen Atalia. All right. So just for those, I'm into technology, so I got into AI. I did a little description about Atalia, and voila, this is what came up. So this is an AI's rendition of Queen Atalia. What do you guys think? Does it
The
fit?
future, yeah. I think so.
We go with it.
I go with it. Okay. All right. Good. Yeah.
She look a little bit tougher, and
Yeah.
what she does. Yeah.
I like the colors, the red, the gold, the white. That's all nice as well. I like that. That's nice.
Yeah.
I like colors. It's good.
Yeah. The green's in there too, so you'll see. Looks scary. Yeah.
She looks scary.
Very broad. All right. So let's go to the first thing. Can you read that, Jeff? I'm trying to say the voice thing scratchy.
Yeah. 2 Kings 8. 2 and 20 years old was Isaiah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, king of Israel. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab and did evil in the sight of the Lord, as did the house of Ahab. For he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab, and went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to war against Hazael, king of Syria, in Ramoth Gilead, and the Syrians wounded Joram.
All right. So the point here again is, I know we're talking about Queen Athaliah, but you got to understand Ahaziah in order to understand her. So, as it noted that his Athaliah was the daughter of Omri, and Omri is the father of Ahab, right? So when we look at, go back to the slides, please. Let's go back 2 slides, just so you guys can kind of see. Go back 2 slides I want to show one with a graph. Go back. Can you go back 2 slides? One more, right there. See, Omri is the father of Ahab. So Omri is the one who wed Ahab, his son Ahab, to Jezebel, right? And so Jezebel, we know, is we all know the name Jezebel, right? We know that she's a Phoenician princess, and she influenced Ahab to bring the worship of Baal and all the various gods and goddesses into the nation of Israel. Remember, there's two now. There's Israel, there's Judah, and so her daughter Athaliah actually is the one who marries then Joram, and they have Ahaziah. And Ahaziah ends up becoming king, and she ends up counseling him in the ways of Ahab. All right. So all of that evil that's brought into Israel is now influencing even Judah. Right. So it's almost like an infestation. Right. So we talked a little bit about this in volume 2 of the Kings, when we saw how the God of Israel had to bring up Jehu in order to destroy Ahab and all of Ahab's seeds, in order to make sure he stamps out this evil in Israel. It wasn't just one. If you ever hear this thing, if you see one roach, oh my goodness, you don't just have one, you got a lot, right? It's an infestation. And so that's what was happening, and that's what this part did. And we talk a little bit about this, shall we? There's a lot of different ways for nations to influence nations, right? We can have military battle, we can have cultural influences, we can, there's drug wars where I can flood another nation with drugs and try to take them over that way. There's all different strategies. And part of it too also is marriage. Right. Where you have my daughter marries your son. Now we're bonded, not just, we're bonded by blood now, right? And you're not going to go to war with me now, because how am I going to war against my father-in-law, right? Right? Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. So Mo Garner says, so now I don't understand how he was the son-in-law. Don't understand how his son-in-law of, I'm not sure why he doesn't understand his son-in-law. Ahaziah is the son of Athaliah. And Athaliah is the daughter of
Ahab, right?
That's correct.
So the son-in-law would be to is it no, Joram, the on the other side in the
Right.
for it.
On the Israel side.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So uh, yeah. So that's where the family comes in. So what I was saying. Oh,
Well,
influence. Right.
the
So
strat.
we have a situation where um, the influence the other nations had on Israel also is now influencing Judah
Yeah,
in that
because of the marriage, right?
because of the marriage.
Okay,
Correct.
marriage, right?
Correct. All right. You guys. The producer. Can you keep going forward to the next one? And right there, yeah. So when we read back in volume 2, we read how Jehu, when he went to go kill the king of Israel, it just so happened that the king of Judah was there with him, right?
Mhm.
And so those two actually were, as he said, he joined together with them to go to war against Syria. And so it's one of those things where, yeah, you kind of wanted the two nations to come together because they're family, but how you didn't want to come together for this reason, right? Under the culture of Jezebel and Ahab, under the worship of Baal, right? Wanted to come together under the worship of the God of Israel, right? But in this situation, we see how the evil that was brought in through Jezebel and through her priest and the worship of Baal end up influencing Judah, so that both of them now are not following the God of Israel.
Right.
But as Jehu, as we talked about in the last lesson, ends up getting the instructions to kill all the seed he had,
Right.
he ends up killing Ahaziah too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, you guys with me?
Mhm.
All right. Next one.
2 Kings 11. And when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons, which were slain. And they hid him, even him and his nurse, in the bedchamber from Athaliah, so that he was not slain. And he was with her hid in the house of the Lord 6 years, and Athaliah did reign over the land.
Mm, mm.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, understanding again, it's not like she's doing this independently, right?
Right.
She has a mission, right? She wants to make sure that Israel stays on the path that it is, in this case, Judah, on the path that it was, even though Ahab is dead, even though Jezebel's dead, right? Her family, right, is dead, even though her son is dead.
Mhm.
She is going to take the reign,
Yeah.
and she's going to make sure she stays in power so she can continue the culture, what was the work that was done, and make sure that no one can ever come and challenge her and go back, to the way that Judah was before she even
Yeah.
entered. And so she killed all the seed. What you guys think?
It's crazy. It kind of reminds me of I know we say this all the time, but the show, The Game of Thrones, and you kind of see the different ways in which, again, the throne gets sort of carried around, and the
Mm-hmm.
different strategies that people have to obtain the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for me, I think that show probably took a lot from the scriptures, and
Mm-hmm.
I think when we look at a story like this, I think it's easy for us to sometimes like read over death and gloss over death, but you can imagine the emotion that she had when she heard that her son was dead. You can imagine the emotion she had when she's saying kill everybody that's like of that seed. And there's a sort of thematic element in it that I almost want to see on screen, so I can sort of see that process of the film where you're seeing her go through all of this. And but then you see that one scene where again the child's hid, you're like, oh, that's gonna come up later,
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, and
Right.
then and then you see again for these years that she's in charge. You can imagine too. Again, she is setting the tone, right? So she is trying to set the tone in a way that she feels that the nation should go. And as we mentioned previously earlier on, if you as the head are not sort of in line, in tune with the God of Israel, you can imagine the trickling effect. That's what I'm looking for. The trickle effect of, you know, this tone that you set is going to have on the rest of the nation. And that, if we think back all the way back to Saul and even before that with Samuel, that was essentially the fear, right? Was that the king is going to get you guys to do whatever he wants you guys to do for his or her benefit. And the other added thing to kind of mention is, I think it's so funny we, you know, live in this world of 2023, and you know, we have, you know, at least in the United States, we never had a female president before, you know, and we have a Israelite queen essentially, right, that is here and in a leadership position. Of course, not in the way that we would like her to be, but I think it's just sort of telling that again, even in that time, in that sense, that she was able to be that sort of take that leadership role again, not under the good guys, but still just, you know, something to take note of for sure.
Yeah, right. Mo Garner Gamer says, I think this shows clearly that in no way did Israelite culture oppress their women. Right. Yeah, exactly. To your point, right, Jeff? Because if there was oppression against women, there's no way she could even do that.
Yeah, like that'd be off the table completely.
The military would not allow that. The elders would not allow that. You know what I mean? Would not allow, you know, any of that. Yeah. But she's part of the royal family, and not that they condone her killing the other thing, but it's sort of like, you know, when the leadership, you're like, okay, I you know, I'm not sure how.
Yes,
how do we? You have a coup. I don't know. You know, what do you do? Yeah, it's a tough situation. Like, you know, especially we talk about this all the time. You know, as a normal person, we read what's going on behind the scenes in the scriptures. The scripture's not written yet. So I'm just going by what I see in the paper, right? I don't know what's going on. You know, wow, they killed our king. That's all I know. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's possible that she could even put the word out that she didn't kill the royal seed. Maybe someone else did it. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, if you read the story from before, her husband got killed and his brothers got killed by a foreign nation. So, you know, who knows what the propaganda was at the time, you know? But the idea is that people did give their allegiance to her to be queen. She couldn't do it without their allegiance. So,
and that is not the strategy or the actions of a weak person either. So even the idea of like, you know, women being the weaker sex, I think like in this situation, we see she has some sense of leadership ability that has a lot of strength, even for all that turmoil, to say, no, I'm gonna be the one that's gonna call the shots now. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain sense of strength, even if it's in arrogance and negativity, but still that she is displaying. Where you could imagine if it was flipped and it was for good and for the betterment of Israel, you can imagine again how beneficial that could have really been for sure.
For sure. And again, as a lay person, who knows what the story was being told, right? All you know is turmoil, right? It's been like we've gone through like 3 kings in like a few years. And we see our brothers Israel having, you know, all their people being killed by this guy named Jehu, and he says God sent him, but then you know what I'm saying, you know, how do you decipher through all this information that you're being told and all this chaos? And now here's someone who's going to give us stability, you know, and like, you know, so you may not be able to judge it exactly as a normal layperson. I think I did see something from Anthony. I wonder what was the bigger influence, power or parents.
Wow, good question. I think it turned into, it was an emotional power decision. And I don't know if it's for the parents, but I think it was just it was behind the son, because then after she takes over, it's like it went away, because we don't hear that she did anything good or anything else. We just know, you know, that she took over and she reigned for 6 years. But what does that mean?
6 years. What happened during those 6 years? Right.
She couldn't have done anything good, or they would have wrote about it, right? Maybe she took over. That was her big thing, and she just settled. That was it.
And 6 years is not a short time. That's longer than, you know, like a president in the United States, you know, gets at least like one term for, you know. So I think sort of as you were saying, like, you know, she took over, and I think a part of it, as you're mentioning, might have been for power. A part of it, I think, was largely an emotional decision. But I do think that again, from where she comes from, like what's the saying, the apple doesn't fall from the tree, like you have some sense of whatever you were, that you had from your upbringing. And I think there's some part of her, for whatever reason, that might have, again, thought this is how it should be based upon how I was raised and what I saw. And we can't have this changing and shifting now, because then what does that mean? It means that the legacy of my parents and my bloodline and my father and my mother are no longer going to be in the picture. We're the bad guys, and I can't have that, so I have to perpetuate whatever I feel is morally correct through my eyes, So.
Right. So in modern terms, understand Omri, Ahab's father, Ahab, Jezebel, all of them. To in modern day's term, it's sort of like the Kennedys, right? It's like whatever, the Bushes, or whatever. It's the royal family. Like, it's not just the one person thinking about themselves. Although but a bigger picture is like, I have we have all this legacy. It's not going to stop with me. I gotta keep this going, right? This is something, we have our destiny.
Yeah. Like that name means something, right?
That's
like,
right.
100%. You're from Ahab, like that is going to mean something,
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Do you think she looked up more to Jezebel than Ahab?
That's actually a pretty good question. That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's a really good point. Because the strength of her, where did she get that from?
That's right.
Where did she get that?
Why would they have?
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't that.
That's right. That's right.
Which I think could be a whole other discussion too, about the importance of, like when you are raising your, here, women in particular, sort of in the way that you raise them, to sort of say like, hey, you have a lot of power and influence, sort of being raised in the way of the God of Israel, in a way that could be beneficial to whoever the man that is, in your life as well. But again, I think she definitely did get that power sense and that emotional leadership capability, I would say, probably from her mother.
For sure.
More
and
so.
in her eyes, like you mentioned, keeping that legacy alive, she's the only one left.
Yeah.
Right? Only one left. So
desperation at this point.
Absolutely. Yes. She's
and then your son died too, right? So desperation for sure.
For sure. All these things. And Anthony Ross said it reminds me of Ahab and Naboth's vineyard. Yeah, for sure. If we didn't get to that, maybe we'll do that at number 4. But the synopsis is, again, talking about strength. Ahab wanted this guy's vineyard. He wouldn't get it. He wouldn't sell it to him. He goes crying to his wife Jezebel, and Jezebel's like, "No, what are you crying for? I'll get it for you." And so she goes and trumps up some charges against this guy to get him killed, say he was blaspheming or something, and then hands over the vineyard to her husband, Ahab.
Going back to that story, that we answered that question again. Jezebel, she looked more up to Jezebel than she did Ahab.
Oh, for sure.
This is that story. Another takeover.
So on this, it's one of those things like, how do we get here, right? Like, how do we get here? Like, I mean, it's deep, right? I mean, we're talking about, again, talking about the whole these royal legacy of families, these Kennedys that are teaching the nation, both nations now, to go study Baal. How did they get their claws? Again, it was just one person, but into this nation, both nations like that. And I'm gonna go back to Judges chapter 2, and we don't have a slide for it, but I'll just read through it if you guys want to join me. Judges chapter 2. This is when we first came into the land, and the God of Israel gave us instructions with Joshua to clear out the land, clear out all the nations in this land, right? We don't want them to be around you or near you or anything like that. We want just you there. And we didn't do that 100%. We didn't do it 100%, right? And so Judges chapter 2, I'm going to read just the first few verses. And the angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochum and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt and have brought you unto the land which I swear unto your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. This is the God of Israel speaking through the angel to the children of Israel at that time. And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars. But ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? And if you go into the details a little bit, you'll see some of the things where they made some compromises with a couple of the nations and some things like that, right? 3, wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you. And it came to pass when the angel of the Lord spake these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. Just wanted to throw that in there. Like a lot of this we're talking about. This is a few hundred years prior, right? This is before all the kings, and we're like in the middle of the kings, and or before the judges. This is like at the beginning, just when they're just selling the land. Some of the things that didn't do quite right. Now we see generations later, we're suffering the effects of it because we didn't quite do it the way we were supposed to do it. So he said, because of that, there will be thorns in your side, and their God shall be a snare unto you. So imagine when you, at this point, when you're hearing this, you can, oh man, I'm so sorry we did this, right? But you probably couldn't imagine Jezebel and Ahaziah, Talia, how it would manifest itself.
Yeah, probably couldn't imagine that. Like again, like you were saying, it's truly an infestation where, like kind of like the analogy of the roaches, right? Where like if you could leave a piece of bread, let's say like on the floor, and it seems like it's not a big deal, but then over time, the like messier you are, the more the infestation sort of will come in. So I think it's a matter of us having the understanding, one, the trust in our God to know that He knows what's best for us, but also the understanding that we have to be very like diligent when it comes to like adhering to the law and instruction, because we can never really see the full picture, and it could take hundreds of years for us to see. Like, imagine Moses looking ahead into the future and seeing what we did in terms of not only do we have a king now, but also we have kings that are like that are trying to get us to worship Baal. You know what I mean? Like, he probably never fathomed or thought that was going to be the case hundreds of years down the line. So yeah,
that's true.
No, 100% for sure, and that's right. And so at that point, when you are now under this king, you're going to ask the question, man, why? How did this happen? Whoa, what? What's going on? And not understand it, like, this is all the bed that we've made, and it's something that we may not always see the full picture of the cause of how we got here. But we have to just trust, and understand, like, wow. We just have to. That's why we even have to ask for God's mercy on a regular basis, to make sure, right, and to make sure we're on the right path.
I mean, that is very true though with Jezebel, because she just became a thorn in our side, especially with like with Nabat. I don't know what's his name. Yeah, when they took the vineyard over, like, so she did that, and then we get to Atalita, and then look what she do. Another thorn situation kind of going on.
Right.
Like, it started, and then here it is.
Right.
It goes again. So I could. It fulfilled. It came to pass.
Right. So, but let's look at this and see. Let's go to the next slide and see. It reminds me of Elijah was when he was going through the issue with Jezebel, and he went to the mountain and crying to the God of Israel, like, just kill me because your people are not. I'm the only one, and he had to correct them to say, you're not the only one. And every generation, I always keep a few unto myself. And here we have, even in this situation, where you have those that are trying their best to really preserve the world seed, as we're going to read. So can you read this next slide?
Yeah. What's this? Now I gotta look at this real hard. Okay.
let the young eyes do it. Let Jeff
do it. Okay.
Yeah. Good eyes. Yeah.
2 Kings 11. And the seventh year, Jehoiada sent and fetched the rulers over hundreds and the captains and guards, and brought them to him in the house of the Lord, and made a covenant with.
I'm sorry. Did we read the one before where he hid? He hid the she hid. Yeah, we read that, right?
Yes, we read that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Sorry. Okay. Good.
Fine. And made a covenant with them, and took an oath of them in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. And to the captains over hundreds did the priests give King David spears and shields, and that were in the temple of the Lord. And the guards stood, every man with his weapon in his hand, round about the king from the right corner of the temple to the left corner of the temple, along by the altar and the temple. And he brought forth the king's son and put the crown upon him and gave him the testimony, and they made him king and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, God save the king. You wanna pause there, or you wanna keep going?
So yeah, I feel like there's a little piece missing in there, but it is that's how it flows. But pretty much this is after 6 years, and this is when the priest now. If you remember, I believe his sister had saved Joash from being killed and living with the priest. Now, after 6 years, I think going to the 7th year is when he's going to be revealing him to the people. So up to now, people think there is no royal heir alive, and so she's the rightful, heir to the throne. But this is happening behind the scenes. But now he's going to be revealing, and so of course, in this situation, you talk about how fierce Athaliah is. First, you need protection, so he's making sure everything is structured exactly before I reveal him. Right?
Exactly. And I think again, I like to picture these things as films, right? And I'm just imagining the setup, the structure, like the secrecy that has to be there. And then again, it's so funny too, like how power works as well, because she is the queen, right? But when the people visually see this young boy who's the son of the known king getting crowned, just visually now the people have a different source of power that they're going to sort of try and sort of lean towards, and that's the fear. You know what I mean? So I think just to sort of put that out there as well. So
for sure.
Anyway, I was at verse 12, I think. 13. Okay. And when Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she came to the people into the temple of the Lord, and she looked, behold, the king stood by a pillar, as the manner was, and the princes and the trumpeters by the king, and the people of the land rejoiced and blew with trumpets. And Athaliah rent her clothes and cried, treason, treason. Again, this scene would be so powerful to see that, right?
For sure.
And two, not only that, but again, we just spoke about too, she's at this period of like desperation. I need to save my family's legacy. And now you're seeing her at this point, hearing this noise. She comes in, she's seeing all these people that she maybe thought she trusted too, right? Or that feared her enough that she could trust them. And then they have all sort of almost betrayed her in a sense to sort of have the rightful king there. So, verse 14.
15, I think.
No, 15, sorry. But Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds, the officers of the host, and said unto them, have her forth without the ranges, and him that followeth her kill with the sword. For the priest had said, let her not be slain in the house of the Lord. And they laid hands on her, and she went by the way. The which of the horses came into the king's house, and there she was slain. And Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, that they should be the Lord's people, between the king also and the people. And all the people of the land went into the house of Baal and brake it down, his altars and his images brake they in pieces thoroughly, and slew Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. And the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord. 7 years old was Joash when he began to reign.
Amen.
Wow,
so
that's very powerful.
So you see how it took, you think about, remember how significant the number 7 is, right?
Yeah.
Right? Even our young boys, and until they turn 7, right? There's a significance about that. You think, he could have brought him out when he was 1 or 2.
That's what I was going to say too. Like, why did they, I mean, of course we know that, but there has to be something so important that they waited that long. Because again, why not 6, right? Mentally is probably like the same, you know what I mean? So I think that has a lot to do with, again, the understanding of spirituality and the understanding of maybe they felt he would have more protection spiritually if he was 7, or maybe they knew that it was significant culturally to us as a people, you know what I mean? So there's something very significant about the time where they decided, hey, we're going to do it now that he's 7 years old,
Evil woman for sure, right? And you almost can tell because the people there wasn't much pushback
Yeah.
about getting rid of her.
Right.
It was like, wow, we're so glad we have our real king who's going to put
Yeah.
us in the real path. Everyone was in agreement, and the last when Jehu was destroying 7 years earlier, destroying Baal in the nation of Israel. And when he's doing that, remember he had the whole worship. He had the whole thing he was going to do, this worship of Baal. And he brought everybody to Baal's temple, and he went through this whole thing.
Excited.
And that he had to do it. But in Judah, the people did it. The people themselves did it, right? To say, we no more. We're not doing this anymore. So I let you know that it sort of folded its course. You know how in the beginning it's like everything is so nice. So that's so great. We should follow that culture. It's so pretty and all that. By this time, they've seen the how evil and the outcome of it or whatever. And they're already like, we're done with this. We are done with this. We're going back to our God. Like, you know what I mean? No one had to force it. So he lets you know how evil it was. And so in that whole point, you're wondering, like you said, in year 3, in year 4, in year 5, why live through all this evil? But as you said, there's significance to 7. There's significance into the young boy becoming 7 before he could take that throne. And so as our elder has taught us, the significance of your cycle is a very, very significant thing. And significance that his coronation was inside of the temple, inside the temple where the priest had his domain and had, the protection that he needed physically and spiritually to
that's a good point.
But in that place. So all these pieces came together at the right time in order. This was finally the Ahab was done. Jezebel now was fully done, and they were able to start over.
That's a good point.
Beautiful. So was Jehoiada? Yeah, wasn't Jehoiada actually in rule, as he was the one that said that they would be the Lord's people? No, he wasn't in rule. He was the priest. Right? He was the priest who was making that covenant with the king and the people. So he was the teacher, obviously, because he's living. It reminds me of Samuel, right, being brought up by the priest, right, in the temple, right. He was she was brought up. That was the teacher. So of course, as the mentor to the king, you're going to kind of give him as much as you can. But he is the king. He is the ruler. But I'm going to play my role, making sure that he has all he needs to be a successful king. So the priest was not the king. But he wanted to make sure that everything to the best of his ability was on the right path. And so thank goodness for him. Thank goodness for also the sister who was able to, think quickly and not just freak out, but let's save this one, to make sure, even though at that time was a baby, who knew what could happen, later on, how the God would use the least of them in order to bring his people back to him.
Right. I like that was the 7th slide too, just to throw that in there. It says 7 at the bottom. It was the 7th. We move on to the next, and it talks about the same thing, like breaking down the altar of Baal, and then now we're about to go into this king who we find more about breaking down the altars of Baal.
For sure. Okay. So let's see. What time? Where we at? We have one more page on Athaliah. Let's just read through it real quick, and then we're gonna jump into the next king.
Okay. 2 Chronicles 24. And it came to pass after this that Joash was minded to repair the house of the Lord, and he gathered together the priests and the Levites, and said to them, "Go into the cities of Judah and gather all of Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see that ye hasten the matter. Howbeit the Levites hasten not." And the king called for Jehoiada the chief, and said unto him, "Why hast thou not required of the Levites to bring in out of Judah and out of Jerusalem the collection, according to the commandment of Moses, the servant of the Lord, and of the congregation of Israel for the tabernacle of witness? For the sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of God, and also all the dedicated things of the house of the Lord did they bestow upon Balaam. And the king's commandment, they made a chest and set it without at the gate of the house of the Lord. And they made a proclamation through Judah and Jerusalem to bring in to the Lord the collection that Moses, the servant of God, laid upon Israel in the wilderness. And all the princes and all the people rejoiced and brought in and cast in the chest until they had made an end.
Okay.
I really appreciate this for a couple of reasons. The first thing is you can see that. So again, kind of like we were saying from before, the king's supposed to sort of try and be one with the law, understand it, and get to a point where, okay, I understand that as the king, I'm the vessel to ensure that this is supposed to go the way that it's supposed to go in terms of our connection to our God. I'm the headpiece, which means that I need to set the tone. So how I'm assuming is in his process of doing that, he's realizing, hey, there's something we have not been doing, right? And there's something that is kind of missing here. It kind of reminds me of, I think, a scripture, sort of maybe in Hosea or something, where it talks about how over years and years and years that we as a nation kind of let the temple kind of get really tarnished, and we didn't sort of upkeep it, and we were sort of more focused on other things in the nation. But so again, if you're the king, so for example, if you're the president and you say, we need to make a law that we restore all the bridges, right? It sets the tone that I care about transportation in the United States, right? So if I say I need to, speak to the priest to say we need to ensure that we're following the law that says we have to put money towards the temple and towards our place of worship, it sets the tone of this is the most important thing, right? This is going to be on my agenda to ensure that we get this done. So I think for me, I really, appreciate that aspect of it too as well. But it also shows the importance of, when a young man, I'm assuming he's a young man here, is really invested in the benefit of his nation, he almost looks for things to see how he can make greater, right? He almost looks for things to say, I need something. There's a drive in me to ensure that we as a nation are propelling in a positive direction. And he found the things that, hey, let's make sure that we're doing this, right? And I love to see how that progressed. And that the priest didn't say, no, I'm not going to do it, but sort of took heed to say, yeah, like you are the king and you are the head, you're setting the tone. This is how we're going to do it. You know what I mean? Right. So I really like that.
Right. Yeah, you definitely see the relationship between the generations. And sort of answering the question about who's really in charge. The king absolutely is in charge, and making sure he's not just a mouthpiece of the priest or anything like that, but in himself, because he and again, he's following instructions. He's reading for himself and seeing like, well, when Moses instructed us, we need to take care of this. This is, why didn't you guys, hey, these are older people than him, but he's the king. He's like, hey, I mean, why ain't you? We got to do this. This is not. It's not by choice or option.
Yeah,
this is a part of.
And sometimes that's necessary too, right? Because again, if the priest is a bit older or whatever, like people get in their habits, they get used to things.
Exactly.
Set the way. This is how it's been.
For sure.
For next year, and he's like,
that's right.
No.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So I really appreciate that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think someone had said, it's one of those things. We're also getting people's habits, right? It's interesting, right? And so it's like, okay, we have a solution. Let's put something right there at the gate, make it convenient for people, cut out all the excuses. You don't have to go door to door or nothing like that. So it'd be right there for them. So you can see that he's also, trying to find, I'm pretty sure that probably was never done before, trying to find novel ways in order to accomplish the vision that he has. And, and working, again, it's always like, I wish it was like this, but you got to work with what you got and try to see exactly how you can make your outcome happen regardless, so definitely great leadership there. We see that for sure. So even though it's about Queen Athaliah, we can't end with that because we understand the God of Israel always has a plan, even through the dark days. So if you were alive during those 6 years when she reigned, you're probably like, oh, God is gone from us. He left us with this woman. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen to us? Just hold on and be faithful. He has a plan. Hold on and be faithful. He has a plan, even through the darkest days. So don't give up. Don't give up, but endure, because you'll see. And so Joash had great success.
Right.
All right. Let's jump on to the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. The next one is King Hezekiah.
Oh, I love it.
King Hezekiah.
I love this.
We're still in Judah. And this is a couple of generations later where we have King Hezekiah. We still have a situation where you got some good kings coming in, and but King Hezekiah comes in, and good king, bad king, King Hezekiah. Do you guys know? Good king, bad king.
Good.
Great king.
Great king, yeah.
King. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm curious to those who are from that are there that are joining us in the chat. Are you guys familiar with King Hezekiah? Yes, no, yes, no. I'm just curious.
That's a good king. I know everybody knows.
You know that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good king. He a good.
Yeah.
Why? Because he has unleavened bread in his hand. That's why.
Yes, yes.
What's up, Veronica? How you doing?
Hello.
All right. See Brenda there at the sevens. Bo Garner said he wasn't a good king, a bad king. He was an awesome king.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right.
I like it.
Pam B says one of my favorite. All right. Let's see. Let's jump into it and see if you're right. King Hezekiah and First Chronicles 30. So before we get there, this is one of those where I told the panel I'm gonna read a little bit that's not on this, just to give you guys some background before we get to this. All right, I'm going to read Second Chronicles 29, a couple verses, just to give the back before we get here. Second Chronicles 29. I'm gonna start at verse 1 and read a couple verses, and I'm going to hop around. So Hezekiah began to reign when he was 25 years old. And he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. Okay. So again, talk about youth. He was 25 when he started. So I saw out of the story at the end of at the Leo, we get to Joash, how youth was just so important. His youth really brought a lot of energy, a lot of ideas. So you can imagine Hezekiah 25, similar type of thing.
Yeah.
And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father had done. Right? I know all of us would love to have those be the lines that are being written about us.
Oh, yes, that's the dream.
Right?
That's the goal.
Dr. Jeffrey Blair, he did that was right in the sight of the Lord, as his father, Elder Jeffrey Blair. Right? Absolutely. Verse 3. He, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of the Lord and repaired them. So already I'll have to get into the deep details of the story. You can understand from Joash, where's the camera? From Joash till we get down to Hezekiah. Unfortunately, we had a situation where all the work he did to repair the temple and reopen it, Joash, had gone in reverse to some of the kings, the bad kings. By the time we get to Hezekiah, was of the same mind as Joash. He had to go through that again as reopening it and getting everything again. Verse 4, and he brought in the priests, the Levites, and gathered them together into the east street, and said to them, hear me, ye Levites, sanctify now yourself, and sanctify the house of the Lord God of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place. For our fathers have trespassed, and done that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord our God, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of the Lord, and turned their backs. And so he just kind of goes through, and I'm just trying to show how he's doing all that he can to restore not just physical building, but also the culture and the people into the worship of the God of Israel. Right? Taking us all through that, and it's going into a lot of detail in chapter 29. And so he starts that, and they start to cleaning it. They start to. So I'm gonna jump down. Verse 10. Now it is in mine heart to make a covenant with the Lord God of Israel, that his fierce wrath may turn away from us. My sons, talking to the priest, be not now negligent, for the Lord has chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, that ye should minister unto him and burn incense. And then they went and did what they were supposed to do. And I just love that part where he given the charge, and I know, you're like, oh, me, I'm just one person. I don't think myself a thing that significant, but he's number one, my son, and let you know the family connection there, and then also to understand that you're here in this point in time to do this thing. Right. That you may not think it's that important, but it's the most important thing. Yeah. Nothing can go forward until you do your job and do your thing. And so I love that connection and that accountability putting on an individual who again sometimes may not always see the importance of you. You know what I mean? Yeah. What you do, but it's ultimately important that you do what you do, and do not be negligent. Do the best that you can. Because there's so much riding on it.
Right. And
That's a good point.
even cites how the God of Israel, will turn some of that wrath away if you
Mhm.
guys just come back. So he's reassuring them the same thing that the God of Israel said to us before. Like if you turn or even Solomon's prayer at that point, if they turn towards the east, then they come back to you, that we'll what I mean, we'll help. Will he forgive us? And this shows us that that's what he starts to do
Mhm.
from this king. Mhm.
So he goes through all of that and getting everything set up. Okay, now let's go to chapter 30, and we can go to the slide.
All right. Second Chronicles chapter 30. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, to keep the Passover unto the Lord God of Israel. For the king had taken counsel, and his princes, and all the congregation in Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the second month. For they could not keep it in at the time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves to Jerusalem. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto the Lord God of Israel at Jerusalem. For they had not done it for a long time in such sort as it was written. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remnant of you, that are escaped out of the hand of the king of Assyria. For if ye turn again unto the Lord, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that lead them captive, so that they shall come again into this land. For the Lord your God is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you, if ye return unto him. So the post passed from city to city throughout the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, even unto Zebulun, but they laughed them to scorn and mocked them.
Oh, stop
Nevertheless,
there a second.
yeah.
Stop there a second. That's the part that was from the very beginning was just I guess many of us can identify with.
Mm.
Everything that King Hezekiah said, right? Number one, before we get here, he's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk. Before he sends any of this out, again, we've read in chapter 29, he was so diligent in trying to make sure the structure was in place before he invited anybody to come do anything.
Yeah.
Right? Make sure the building was repaired, opened it up, make sure there was money there to do the repairs, make sure and if you go to detail, you'll see, make sure the priests and Levites had their clothes right, make sure they had the cleaning and sanctification right, and not just rushing through it, but in those days of sanctification you had to go through, make sure that the musical instruments were there and that they were right. Make sure that took months, that took a long time, all that. And by the time everything was done to get everything sanctified, as you can see, when is Passover?
In the first month.
The first month. What day of the first month?
14th day.
14th day. Everybody, right? Absolutely. They could not do it in time in order to do that. So they said, "Oh, maybe we could do it in the second month." Where did they get that from? They just make it up in their mind. Just make it up to say, "Oh, we can't do it now. Let's just do it and do next month. No big deal." Was it something like that?
That's also in the law as well, I believe.
Right. Talk to me. What's that? Tell me about that law.
If you're not able for whatever reason because you have uncleanliness or what have you, that you would do it in the second month.
Absolutely. So again, the point I'm trying to make is Hezekiah was the same way he's telling the young men, the priests, and the Levites, and all those that serve at the temple, you guys are here for a reason. This generation is here for a reason, to really reform Israel and put us on the right path. So do not be negligent in what you're doing. Let's dot the I's, let's cross the T, let's make sure we're doing it right. And so in that process, again, understanding, man, we did everything that we tried to do, but guess what? We're still not going to make that date because we're unclean. What can we do? Well, hey, let's go back to the law and see, is there anything here that can guide us along this way? And there was wisdom that the God of Israel wrote thousands of years ago in the wilderness to Moses and saying, if, as you said, Jeff, if you cannot do this, then you can do it in the second month, But again, you can't take it on yourself. You have to make sure you go through the right protocols to make sure you get that type of approval. So when they did that, decided, okay, we did that. Now we're ready. We have the right sanctification. We're in compliance with the law. Now we need the people, and they haven't done it in so long. They're not going to just show up, right? You gotta announce it. And when they announce it, this is what I love. He could have just said, "Yeah, let's just let Judah, our nation. I mean, Israel, they're doing their thing. Let's not even worry about them. That's our nation, Judah and Benjamin. Let's go do our thing." But he didn't. He sent post. So yes, they had post out there back then too. He sent post out.
Instagram posts.
Absolutely, yeah. All the way. If you look what Zebulun is, and that's the furthermost northern tip of Israel.
Okay.
That's all the way. That's like saying all the way to Maine, or all the way to, in this case, what's the northern part in Canada? Ottawa up there at the top, Nova Scotia, whatever. The whole breadth. So from Chicago to New Orleans, from Miami to Maine, and California to New York.
From Portland to
Portland, right? Yes, that's right. Yeah. All the way through. He wanted to make sure everybody's. Here's a situation where, unlike on when we just read the story before, Ahab trying to influence the whole nation for evil, he's trying to encourage the whole nation for good.
For good, right.
Bring us together for good.
Yeah.
And then the other part is where when he sends it out, he's an Israelite king, sending out Israelite words to Israelite people to worship our Israelite God, and the response is
they laugh.
Laughing, yeah.
They laugh.
Not just laugh, not just no, not just what did it say?
Laugh them to scorn.
Yeah.
What do you visualize when someone laughs to scorn?
I visualize, when you when something is really funny and your belly hurts, like that amount of laughing, and to the point of almost like embarrassment, or to the point of hurt, and sort of almost like negative intention within that laugh as well. Like that couldn't possibly be our solution right now,
Right. 100%.
Yeah. Well, which I think is, interesting in that, I think that when we take a look at our current state now, I think it's very similar to then, in that, we have a lot of stuff that is going on as a people. And I can imagine in that time, if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, he mentions, Assyria and all those things, and things that are going on within the nation of Israel as a whole. Again, I think sometimes when it's on paper, it's harder to really see the complexity of this. But again, look at our state now. We have a messed up education system, school to prison pipeline. We have difficulty in politics and the different cultural things that are there's so many things that are going on. I'm sure there's some resemblance of that back then in terms of what they're dealing with. And you had this king, again, he's a young man, he's 25 years old, and he's going to all these people, again, the leaders of these nations and the people themselves, and saying, hey, look, this is what we should do, because if we do this, our God will come back and help us, and all will be well. Right. And they're like, are you crazy? I have so much stuff that I'm trying to do or worry about or whatever. And that kind of reminds me again of our current state now, because, no matter what we go through as a people, it always feels almost silly if you were to go to, let's say, a NAACP meeting, or you go to a meeting, like a town hall. And if you were to say, hey, guys, why don't we go to the God of Israel and pray about this and see if, you would get laughed to scorn, right? If you suggested this on sort of a larger scale to your people about the solution to any of the problems in our community, whether big or small.
Yes.
If you were to say, hey guys, let's just start with the Passover, and everything else is going to come together because our God is going to help us. So again, I think it's hard for us to read it sometimes and see the true, connection there. But I think that's exactly what would happen if we tried that in our current day now. And I think we do see it happen a lot, where we say, no, this is a solution, and people say that cannot possibly be, right. Or even if it is, a good thing to do, that's not something we should be focusing our energy on, to the point of what he's trying to do here. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What you think?
I can see the same. I see the same way that Jeffrey did. Like, people will be laugh. People laugh now when we going to handle business. Wait, what? The Passover when? They don't even understand that the capacity of it. Like it's just so out of their minds because for so long they've been following the way of the land or how it is now. So to come out and say that, they just kind of freezes and like, what, man, get out of here. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're not following you with that. We don't believe you. But it just shows that people will just go with the times or go with what's going on
Sure.
versus really, try to understand or even be what we always say, humble themselves to take a chance, right? To learn something and go about something new. They won't humble themselves.
Hmm.
Go ahead
And
on with it.
yeah.
Mhm.
And not realizing the connection between, again, following the law and your success in the world.
True.
Like, I think it's so easy to get caught up in the world that you think the world is first and the law is second. The law is something to do because it's like culturally relevant or whatever. But that is the key for your success in the world. And I
Mhm.
think that sometimes is disconnected from us as a people, is not really realizing how tied it is. The God of Israel, when he set up the law, statutes, and commandments, like set those things up for a reason to be the pillar of your success going forward and things that you do. You know what I mean? So
Yes,
I think it's important for us to sort of remember that at all times and in every
absolutely.
stage of our development as a nation.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
100%, I think that's one reason I like doing the Kings is because we try not to do them in isolation, but sort of see the cause and effect. One
Yeah.
king causes another king to rise. You know
Mhm.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
you
Very
can
true.
see the connection. We just took a little time to go through the whole Ahab and Omri and Hazael and then Joash. And, there's a lot of connections here going forward, the cause and effect. The same thing in your life. There's a lot of cause and effect of, decisions and made at certain stages. May not understand or see exactly, but a lot of the outcomes. It's one of those things where, wherever you are, there you are,
Yeah.
and it's based upon decisions that you've made in your life and things like that. And it's one of those things to try to understand how does it all connect? How does it all connect?
Mhm.
And it's hard, like you said. And that's why in the beginning we talked a little bit about our experience at Passover, how you probably can't always dot line that experience to every single thing in your life, but you do know when you feel like this is the energy I need in my
Yeah.
life. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I know that, and it's hard to express that to someone who has not experienced it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think we can identify 100% because maybe not as a king talking to a nation on a loudspeaker or through post, but I think in my individual life, friends and family I talk to, I can tell they may sometimes be respectful of my face, but I know behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have some good laughs. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure.
Sure.
But all I'm trying to do in a small degree to what King, all I'm trying to do is say, return to the God of Israel because we're Israelites.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be such a crazy concept, but I'll let you know how far gone we are as a people.
Mhm.
Not hopeless, but it's just so far gone that we don't even recognize the truth when it's right in front of our face.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. So if it wasn't for our faith in the God of Israel, we would probably there's no hope at all.
Mhm.
But even though, if you keep going, verse 11, we kind of called it out. They said, nevertheless, diverse
Nevertheless.
Asher and Manasseh and of Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Isn't that a beautiful thing? So the
It is.
masses laughed us going like crazy, whatever. But there was a few. Can you imagine that? A few who there was something. They probably can't even articulate why. How is it that everybody in your family thinks this is the craziest thing in the world, but you said, you know what? I'm going.
Yeah.
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 I'm
Kind
going.
of like what's going on right now.
It's exactly what's
Yeah.
going on right
Exactly.
now. If you guys can identify to that crazy feeling, I don't know why am I going to Canada for Passover? I can't explain
Yeah.
to somebody, but I have to go. I gotta be
Yeah.
a part of this family.
Why
I
are you
mean, yeah.
Understand that.
There were a few brethren even during this, most recent Passover who even did mention that, where their family was like, hey, like that's crazy, whatever. But again, them being there, I think, it's a testament to their own spirit of being able to see the benefit in, going towards the God of Israel when the rest of the world is sort of, going in opposite direction.
Right.
So, I also say too, when you look at stories like this, you say, And there's a quote, I think it's from Jay-Z, that says, take nothing personally, right? And I think in the same thing with this, I use for Israel, because you see, they did it to the best of them, right? To Hezekiah, to Jesus, to David, like they
Yes.
would mock them when they, would say, no, this is our solution for our success, is going towards our God. So if you get mocked or if you get chastised, I would look at it like, again, not taking it too personally, which is very hard to say, but I think, again, that is sort of almost like a badge of honor of saying you're probably going in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just how it has always been, even with our own people, unfortunately. So
Can you imagine Hezekiah probably getting those feedback? Like he's like, okay, I'm waiting for feedback. It's not like instant social media yet, right? You're waiting for the feedback, and it's like,
can you imagine if it was social media?
Tell them, and he's like, what did they say? And they're like, well, you tell them. I'm not going to tell the king what they said. You tell them what they said. And so, but he's still moving forward, but wondering like, is anybody going to come?
Right, right.
Is anyone going to show up?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
I don't know. And then when people start to come in, being like, "Wow, can you imagine? Wow." Let's read the next one. Let's keep going. We're like at 15 minutes. So
okay. 2 Chronicles 30, verse 15. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed and sanctified themselves and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of the Lord. And they stood in their place after their manner, according to the law of Moses, the man of God. The priests sprinkled the blood which they received at the hand of the Levites, for there were many of the congregation that were not sanctified. Therefore the Levites had the charge of killing the Passover for everyone that was not clean, to sanctify them unto the Lord. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Lord pardon everyone that prepareth his heart to seek God, the Lord God of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary. And the Lord hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people.
Wow.
That's awesome. Again, that's it always show like Hezekiah being, praying for the people, even though they weren't clean, they weren't sanctified. Like there it is again. He went to the God of Israel. The God of Israel appreciated him doing that because he went ahead and made sure that the people were clean. So he was happy that, it seemed like the God of Israel was very happy that he had started to work and do the Passover the way he was supposed to do it. And so he blessed all the people, him and all the people, to be able to have it, clean, so that's awesome. And again, it go back to us having the Passover now. Like we working so hard to do it.
Right.
It makes you kind of think in your head, like, we making them happy.
Right.
Right. For sure.
When we were singing, he was getting happy. Yeah.
And I think,
and we're always looking, like you said, as a young person, like trying to wow, okay, let's make sure we do this right. Make sure we do that right. Oh man, look, that's not quite, please have mercy on our mistakes and those things. We're trying our best to make this work. We're trying, we're not trying to do it in the second month. We're trying our best. We're not trying. They didn't come on purpose unclean. It's the first time, and they didn't even know, what they're supposed to do, right? They just wanted so zealous to come, and so we're trying our best to really make, So you see this zest, the zeal to really serve the God of Israel, and balancing that with, but no matter what, there's protocol, right? It just can't wake up out of bed and be like, oh, okay, let's do it. It's like no, there are steps here. Going back to the other story, where the evil time, Athaliah is just wrecking havoc and doing all these various things. We have a king here who's 2 years old. Let's do it now. It's like you can't. You gotta follow the protocol. You gotta wait till he's 7. Sorry, it can't be. You can't find the world the way you want it to be. The world and the law is the way as it is, and so you have to try your best to conform your thinking to the God of Israel and to the law, statutes, commandments, not the other way around.
Right. And I think one of the most important parts of this too, I think, kind of adding to what you were just saying, is that last verse, and the Lord hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people. I think to me is, that I think to have that line, I think would be the greatest blessing ever, to know that you prayed and the God of Israel heard that. And I always say,
Yes.
which I didn't get for myself, is that, the God of Israel does not have to listen to any of your prayers, right?
Amen.
He has no obligation to hear
right.
you, to listen to you, to adhere to what you're saying, to forgive you of your sin, right? But in this moment, Hezekiah knows we're not doing it perfectly, right?
Right.
There's so much stuff that has gone on that
Even the
it's
priests,
impossible for us to
Levites said they were ashamed, right? Yes.
exactly.
Sure.
So
Yes.
we're not doing this perfectly, and we're trying our best. Can you please forgive the people that are unclean here, and still accept what we're trying to do? And he does. And I think that,
Yes.
to me, I think is super important, super significant,
Absolutely.
to show like there was this connection that kind of reminds me of a part in the New Testament where I think it's Jesus the Christ that says that the Sabbath day was made for man and not man for Sabbath day.
Yes.
Just that idea of like, again, what's the bigger purpose here is for me and the God of Israel to be connected, for him and his people to come together. And I think if we can I think Hezekiah's thought was, if I can play to the God of Israel to see that, to say we're trying to come towards you, maybe he'll forgive that imperfect part of it, right? And the fact that he does, I think just shows a lot about this time and how the God of Israel was pleased and happy with what Hezekiah was doing, to say, wow, I'm so happy that you decided to do this, that I'm going to forgive that part of it. You know what I mean?
And even acknowledging you're wrong.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Acknowledging not being
yes.
just, hey, look what I'm doing. Why? Look what I'm doing.
Yes, exactly.
Acknowledging
Right.
you're wrong. This is not perfect.
I know this is not perfect. Yeah, I know. Yes. Yeah.
And this is the wording. That's a good point you bring up. I kind of glazed over this in my head, but think about the word. He listened to the prayer of Hezekiah, and what did he do? He healed the people.
Yeah.
Think about that in the context of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Think about that in the effect that the people probably didn't know that needed healing at the moment.
Exactly.
Because it wouldn't manifest itself probably in the moment.
Right.
Something could happen in their life next year, 2 years, 10 years down the line that could say, oh, why did this happen to me? Because you ate the Passover unclean. And you had no idea that it had this type of effect on you.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So you don't know, sometimes. And so it's you always have to question and ask, and you always have to always be in that humble state of mind to receive the healing, like Hezekiah gave the people in praying for them during that time.
And that's just why I love this. Why I love this. Like I'm learning so much sitting here, just going back and forth, and we talking about this. Like, just imagine that you trying so hard, and he's healing you. You don't even know. It's just you just learning. Like, put your best foot forward. It just makes me want to keep putting my best foot forward towards the nation of Israel. You know what I'm saying? And just keep going. We got to keep fighting.
That's right. And always stay humble. Xavier Brown says, agree, Jeffrey, 100%. On the other hand, if you are zealous of the things of the God of Israel, I assume, he will hearken unto you. Amen. Just stay humble, stay connected. Again, it wasn't the individual that prayed, it was Hezekiah. So you got to be connected to the whole family so that it will be beneficial to everybody. That's one of the things I always try to stress. It's the family thing. You can't be on the island by yourself doing this thing. It's the family coming together, reaping the benefits. Let's keep going. We got 7 minutes? Let's keep going. What happened next?
All right. 2 Chronicles 30, verse 21. And the children of Israel that were present at Jerusalem kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with great gladness. And the Levites and the priests praised the Lord day by day, singing with loud instruments unto the Lord. And Hezekiah spake comfortably unto all the Levites that taught the good knowledge of the Lord. And they did eat throughout the feast 7 days, offering peace offering and making confession to the Lord God of their fathers. And the whole assembly took counsel to keep other 7 days, and they kept other 7 days with gladness. For Hezekiah, king of Judah, did give the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 7,000 sheep, and the princes gave to the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 10,000 sheep, and a number of priests sanctified themselves. And all the congregation of Judah, with the priests and the Levites and the congregation that came out of Israel, and the strangers that came out of the land of Israel, and that dwelt in Judah, rejoiced. So there was great joy in Jerusalem, for since the time of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, there was not the like in Jerusalem. Then the priest, the Levites arose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came up to his holy dwelling place, even unto heaven.
Amen. Oh my goodness.
Man.
Right? That's what we always pray, that it goes
Yeah.
to the God of Israel, and he's glad at what we're doing. Look how the joy. I mean, oh my goodness. Number one, the number, like, this Passover that we had like I don't know, a number of sheep, but we had thousands of bullocks and sheep.
Jeez, can you imagine? Imagine that.
A
Yeah.
lot.
You better come hungry, right? You better just
Oh,
fast.
man,
You better fast for a month or something, right? Because there's a lot of food. But it's all there, right? There's the worship, which again we talk about the glimpse of that, right? And you can imagine thousands of voices all singing praises to the God of Israel. And this is again family from afar, not just my local families, people from my family from all over, come together in one spot in Jerusalem. Imagine what that city's like.
Right.
And then you have the prayers, you have the teachings, the priest teaching the people, you have people confessing their sins, right? And just saying, and going through and probably recommitting themselves, to this, just all collectively. And what can you imagine the energy that's there?
The part that I really like too is the part that he says, hold on, let me see if I can get it. They said, and they taught the good knowledge of the Lord, right? So the idea of like, I don't know, there's something about that where it's like we're even teaching, and like you see, like you were saying, sharing stories and teaching each other about how the God of Israel has worked in our lives and helped us, and like that in itself is like a part of why it's so important to have that community, right? Because I may be going through something in my solo life, but if we can teach each other about the Lord and say, oh, you tried that and he liked that and he answered you, right? So maybe I'll try to fast, or I'll try and pray like that, like you did. You know what I mean? So I think it's that community, I think, is what is important to hear too.
Oh, for sure. Don't remember, that's before this virtual world where we can talk to you guys.
Exactly.
I'm in St. Louis. You have people that are in New York, people in UK, people all over the world right now. It's like, oh wow, we don't get this type of communication basis. So now we get to get to really know each other, get to know how the God has blessed me in my testimony, and possibly help you in your journey, like you're saying. And how enriching that could be. So I think the words are popping out to everybody, right? Especially those who had a little glimpse of what we had over this past week, being at headquarters of Israelite Nationwide Ministries during the Passover. We saw a little bit of all of this, all of this, and it was amazing, memorable, like for your lifetime. So imagine we're just scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface, and really honor Elder Shadrach and the sacrifice he made. And he's the very same thing King Hezekiah was saying. All he's trying to do is rebuild the culture of Israel and have us return to it. And why is that such a novel, crazy thing, or why people are so hard or want to push back so much? That's all we're trying to do. That's why we're here on a Friday night, opening up the Bible and talking about these things with you guys here. This is why we're here. And we want you guys to, consider, continuing this journey, continue to, learn more about the God of Israel, about this culture, about our history, and how we all can kind of come together and rebuild something that, again, the God of Israel will look down from heaven and say, look at my children returning unto me.
Yeah.
He will return unto us. That's
the prayer.
Amen.
Yeah.
Because he will hear it in his dwelling place, right? That's what it said.
I love that, right?
That's up to his holy dwelling place, even into heaven. So that's just something to always remember. And I know this Passover, I feel like I know he was.
You think you heard it? Me too. I think so too. That was a good experience.
Yeah, we got like 2 minutes, and there's a couple more points in Hezekiah's story that we would go through. Well, number one, again, him being able to even for them to work together and say, you know what, let's keep another 7 days. And making sure again, getting approval for that. It's not something that you can just do off from your own willy-nilly, but it's the idea that that's how zealous that they were. But later on, if you read the story again, two key things that come out. One is later on when there is enemies who try to come and make war with him, how he relies on the God of Israel, and he doesn't even have to fight the battle. The God of Israel sends his angels to
protect this place.
Absolutely, and again, because of the investment that was made during this time. He not only turned Judah, he also turned many in the nation of Israel back to him. How is he not going to bless Hezekiah? How is he going to let some foreign nation now come in and have their way with us after everything that we've done to try to return to him? And then the second thing was, and again, you guys could read this, continue on in Second Chronicles, was when he got to his end of his life and he was told by the prophet he was about to die, he prayed to the God of Israel, and the God of Israel extended his life. I think it was like 50 years or so. So again, that didn't just happen at that point. It's because of things that he invested in early on, decisions he made early on, allowed him to have that type of, reap that type of reward, because of that.
And the thing that I want to say just really quickly about that last thing, I think about that story all the time as a physician, and I think about it because I think about, again, the state that we are in is Israelites living in America and our current health conditions. I think all the time, sure, we can eat right, we can exercise, we can take the medication, all that stuff. But our core solution is going back to our God and going back to our Father, because he is the giver of life, as we can see here in the story of Hezekiah. So I think that's important to put out there as well, that you have to, the basis of all health is going back to the God of Israel.
Yes, foundation, the foundation.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, we're right at time. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you to our panel. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Dr. Blair, for joining us. Also, for all those out there, to peace to our brethren and to all friends and family. If you guys want to learn more about Israel, click the link below, reach out to us, and we definitely have a path to try to help you learn more, help you connect with the different branches. And hopefully next year, you'll be able to join us for Passover as well, to really not just read about it, but experience even a glimpse of what we read that King Hezekiah was trying to do. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Peace. Until next time.
Peace.